This is Jaime Lewis, and you're listening to the 805 Living Magazine podcast. I'm one of the food writers here at 805 Living, and for the taste column in the June issue, I focused on happy hour snacks. You know, those crunchy, salty, sweet, and savory bites we all love to eat with a glass of wine or beer or a fantastic cocktail. I sat down with Chef Jason Paluska of the Lark restaurant in Santa Barbara to talk about the restaurant's new craft cocktail hour that includes a thoughtful selection of snacks and drinks. We also talked about his upbringing in Texas and how that influences what he serves and what he likes to eat. Have a listen. We know that you have a new snack menu, or do you call it a happy hour menu?
We call it a craft cocktail hour.
Okay.
And it's sort of a combination of drinks that are inventive and fun, but also kind of low ABV, so that you can enjoy a few at 4 o'clock and not feel like you just tanked your day.
Yeah.
Which can happen if like you have one too many like margaritas in the middle of the day and all of a sudden you're ready for a nap.
Totally.
These are supposed to be just a little more sessionable. I think that's a good word for that.
Yeah.
And then the snacks kind of coincide with the identity of the restaurant being Southern inspired, which I grew up outside of Houston, and it's very like unapologetically Southern. There's chicken skin cracklins, and at times we do hush puppies and Southern fried gizzards, chicken gizzards, and pimento sliders with spicy pickled okra. And it's just something that I think I put them on the menu, honestly, because I don't get a chance to eat them around here, which makes sense because they're like so regional. And so it's kind of awesome to have them in the kitchen so I can snack on them when I want and also serve them and be proud of them because they're just, it's just one of those things that I didn't realize how regional it was until I kind of got out of, the home state.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you guys don't have hush puppies here? Or, that was kind of a learning curve for me, but.
Yeah. And how well do the fried chicken gizzards go?
It's crazy. I think there's a small percentage of people that know them and love them. And then the rest of the audience are intrigued by them because, everybody loves fried chicken. We serve them right now we're serving them with a green peppercorn honey, and we make a hot sauce in-house, like a fermented hot sauce. And I think people like the combination of, fried chicken, hot sauce, and honey. And so they're like, oh, gizzards. And we surprisingly serve a lot more than I expected initially when they went on, because I was like, wow, you never know. It could go one of two ways,
Yeah.
Ultimate fail, or, and the people that get them seem to be really happy, and we love them in the kitchen. It's part of that's for us in the kitchen. We're pretty fired up about having them. And it's fun to serve things that you like, you have a true, affection for. So. Yeah.
And you say that you grew up outside Houston. I mean, what was that like growing up there?
Well, I grew up in a suburb of Houston called Tomball, and I sort of lived a little bit closer to the city, but I went to high school in Tomball proper, which was about a 20-minute drive for us. So the farther away you went from my house, the closer you got to, the pastures and the fields and the sort of open air, and it was very country, in a country feel. And that sort of identity is still there, like in Tomball. I mean, they've got still to this day probably the best chicken fried steak you'll ever have anywhere, and it's just the kind of things you'd expect in small town Texas. But again, 45 minutes in the other direction, you've got this gigantic metropolitan city that's got every culture in the world, and so it's kind of surprising that they're kind of on polar opposites, but they are, relatively close. So,
how does a guy from outside Tomball, Texas, wind up in Santa Barbara?
A lot of luck, and I don't know, kind of word of mouth is how I got down here. I was a restaurant manager in Houston at a sort of a chain seafood restaurant. I was totally unhappy, and I was working, as a front of the house manager. I wasn't in the kitchen yet, and I had graduated hotel and restaurant management. That was my degree at University of Houston. So I thought, like, natural progression, as a 22-year-old, I guess I'm going to be a restaurant manager now. And that was kind of, how I got to the next point. And then I would sort of hang in the kitchen a little bit more at that restaurant, and the kitchen manager there, her name was Bernie. She was like reading this book, and I was like, what's this big, beautiful white book that you're reading? And it's like a coffee table book. She's like, oh, it's this restaurant in California called the French Laundry. And I was like, what's that? And I just remember reading this recipe, and it was like they'd taken, I want to say like goat cheese and turned it into a mousse, and then they grated Parmesan over a silpat, and they baked it, and as it came out of the oven, they set it into they took like a flat of eggs, took the eggs out, and used the flat as like a mold for this Parmesan crisp. And it was just, I don't know, I think it's a canapé that's in this book. And I was like, God, that's food? That sounds so killer. That's like cheese on cheese, but it's just like so beautiful, and I remember like having like sort of that just like eye-opening, like what else is going on in the world besides in this, primarily fried seafood restaurant in Houston. And I like, can I borrow this book? Can I just like see what the world has to offer, kind of thing? And I got really kind of addicted to exploring more. That's kind of where it took off. So fast forward to like, I don't know, a year later, I was looking for culinary schools in California, and I ended up finding one in San Francisco, and just drove out and found a weird house to live in off Craigslist in Daly City. And
Daly City's far.
It is. It's not ideal, but as a 23-year-old moving to San Francisco solo, it was still super expensive then, and this is 2006, to figure out how to make it. And so I just kind of progressed through culinary school, got an internship at this restaurant called Town Hall, with a really cool group of guys that were behind it. That as the month was ending for my internship or externship, I don't remember what it's called. It's one of the two. It was free labor for a month.
Yeah, right.
And it then kind of turned into me opening up their next restaurant, this place called Salt House, and I all of a sudden was being like walked over a city block to their new project, and here's, we want you to sign this press release. Food Network's going to film all this. And I was like, what am I in right now? This is wild. I've been out of culinary school for a month, and like I barely know how to put together a salad at this previous restaurant. And they're like, okay, so we're gonna do this from like basically the ground up. And like I was seeing something that I didn't expect to see, and I was part of this team that was really strong and talented. And I was there for almost 3 years and saw an ad posting for this place called RN74, and the only reason I went there is because I read the bio on the chef, and he had worked at Per Se in New York, which is a Keller restaurant, and and he was also a sous chef at French Laundry, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's I have to learn from this guy. Like, he's in it. Coincidentally, it was only a block away from where I was working at Salt House.
Ideal.
It's just right down the street. And so I applied. This was in 2009. Applied, went in for the interview, got hired. The restaurant was slated to open the following month, and so I got to be a part of another huge restaurant opening. And it's really cool to build something and like be part of the creative process behind getting it off the ground and pitching in, and that was just really important for me to see, and then see a different perspective, like a whole different slew of people part of this opening made it, I guess for me, just this learning experience that I couldn't have been more thankful for to like just kind of land in it, I mean, it could have been, hey, this restaurant's hiring and you go and work for it, but I got the opening and I got to work for these people, and everyone in that kitchen they were 10 times more talented than I ever will be, and I got to learn from all them. So fast forward 4 years, the general manager at RN74 came down to Santa Barbara to work on a project. and they were looking for a chef, and him and I got along really well at RN74, and somehow he threw my name in the hat, and so somehow I got, by word of mouth, I came down here and did a tasting, and somehow got the job. I was like, wow, really? I got it? Sure. Okay, I'll give it a go. And that was 6 years ago this month.
So Lark's been open 6 years?
We opened August 2013. I came down April 2013 to help open it and develop it and help create the sort of sense of what it would be. I mean, Sherry Villanueva, who is our owner, proprietor, and basically this ball of fire behind all these projects, she had this just almost like just so well-defined idea of what she wanted. And when I met her, we like clicked. I was like, do I know you? Have I met you? Mm-hmm. Type of thing. And we just got along really quickly. There was no, awkward, hey, you're new, I'm new, let's get to know each other. Just kind of was very natural. And so, we have the same sort of standard and same sort of vision for what we, I think, both agreed on this place could be then. And so between April and July, we fleshed it out. Mm-hmm. And then by August, when this thing was polished up and nice, we went for it and cracked open the door.
So with regard to this new menu, I mean, what does it take? How far do you have to get to actually launch something like that? How did you know it was time to do that?
With the craft cocktail menu?
Yeah.
Well, we saw, I think, a little opportunity with people in the neighborhood floating around, looking for something. Our doors had always been closed up until 5, sharp. And, the neighborhood's transformed a lot since I've moved here and since we've opened. And there's just a lot more, to do around here, mm-hmm. which brings a lot more people around. And so we thought, hey, like if people are here at our door waiting in line to get in, well, if we open at 4, cool, you can come in and, it's more of a limited menu between 4 and 5, but it's a fun menu. It's a playful menu. It's an inexpensive menu. The drinks, our bartender that's behind our program, Nick Predate, is just this. He's like a mad scientist. Like the stuff that he tastes me on, I'm like, are you part chef / part bartender?
Those are the best ones.
Part phenom. He's like incredible. I hope he doesn't hear this so he doesn't get too cocky. But he really is this wonderful force behind what we're doing behind the bar. And so him and I get to collaborate a lot, and it's fun because the bar and the food should go hand in hand. And so that's what makes our program really strong right now, is that the bond between the people working here.
Yeah, for sure. So with those pimento cheese sliders,
mm-hmm.
that's kind of to me, that seems like a tricky thing to pair.
Yeah.
What do you, other than like, I don't know, PBR?
Yeah.
So what do you recommend on the menu to drink with that?
I would probably recommend a classic light beer with that. I personally, I'm not very fussy when it comes to cocktails. We sort of try and showcase our skill on the cocktail menu. Same with the kitchen. But at the end of the day, I'll take a burrito, I'll take a burger, I'll take a Pliny and call it a day.
That sounds like heaven.
There's nothing better than 1, 2, 3 there for me. And for as far as sliders, and you can almost go in any direction there. I don't think there should be a custom pairing, but again, having drinks that are there's just enough booze in there to where you can enjoy it, but it's not too much to where it slows you down. That's such a nice kind of refreshing version of a cocktail,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Talk to me about the popcorns that you serve seasonally.
Yeah, sure. So we just wrapped up our Texas barbecue popcorn that we had on the menu technically off the menu. It's not printed. It's just served when diners sit. And we just take our favorite versions of barbecue, and Joe Valdez helped create this one. He's from Santa Barbara, and since I'm from Texas, we kind of meet in the middle with what a barbecue style could be if they were married. And and so it's fun. It's playful. People like, we definitely are very generous with our seasoning, so people can, it's a very small, cup of popcorn, but it's like full and packed full of flavor, and that was just it's always a fun one to have. And then just recently, out of the blue, one of my sous chefs, Adam Sanacor, came up with this sort of kettle corn, I would say inspired lemon poppy seed popcorn, which I was just like, wait, what? What?
No.
Really?
What is that?
And then you taste it and you're like, God, that makes sense. It's so good. It's so crunchy and earthy and tart, and it's just the right balance. And so
I bet it's pretty too.
it is. Yeah. It's speckled, and we finish it with some fresh parsley, and it's just it's surprising because that's not the popcorn you would expect to ever hit your table. You could come up with all your favorite flavors, and still probably poppy seed lemon popcorn is not where your mind would take you.
Yeah.
But we rotate it every couple of months, and it's something that I think is fun for people to sit down and just kind of get in the swing for, and kind of get the appetite going, because it's nice when you go, like my personal favorite food of all time is probably Tex-Mex. And so if chips and salsa hit the table early, I'm usually like, okay, good.
Yeah.
They're here. The chips are hot. The salsa is really delicious.
Yeah. Then you feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. we try and do that with the popcorn.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you do anything like queso and chips here?
No, we don't do queso and chips here. It's not against our brand to do it. It's not against my identity to do it. But there's certain things that I feel like if we were to do queso and chips, it would be strictly connected to Tex-Mex cuisine, which I don't usually weave into the menu too much because it's such a defined cuisine. Our menu here is a little bit looser. It's hyper seasonal. It's definitely draws from Southern influence, maybe more Southern comfort influence instead of Tex-Mex influence. Yeah. But I have done things that kind of pull from flavors that might make it into Tex-Mex. I think a good example is we did a beef tartare dish last year that was one of my absolute favorites on the menu. It was this very highbrow beef tartare, lowbrow. We served it with a Budweiser, and it was
perfect.
It was cool because we did a Budweiser that had a lime pressed into some michelada spice. And in Texas, we call that dressed. I don't know if you've heard of that one. But
it's dressed because it has that on it?
Because it has it on the lime, yeah.
It's dressed?
Yes,
That's
dressed.
awesome.
It's dressed. I mean, if you order a bucket of beers in, Galveston, Texas in the summer, and, you order Coronas, you want your limes dressed? Oh, yeah. Bring them. Yeah. Extra ice, please. It's hot. That's usually the conversation. So I kind of took that and put a spin on it, and we made michelada spice in-house. It get dressed in with the actual meat, and then I took on this challenge to do these beef tendon chips, which ended up being a lot more work in the kitchen for us to keep up with because it became a popular dish.
Did you say beef tendon chips?
Yeah, beef tendon chips. So I'd read these on menus years ago, and I never knew how to make them. And I asked a friend. I was like, "What's the process behind that?" And he's like, "Well, braise them, let them cool in their liquid. Make sure that you wrap them before they get too cool to form a shape, because you almost want to create a cylinder with the beef tendon, and then you freeze them in this cylinder shape, and then after they're frozen, then you shave them on the meat slicer, and then after you shave them and arrange them really nice, you dehydrate them, and then you fry them, and they become the chip." And I was like,
"Do they taste good?"
"Oh, they're killer. They're insane.
Yeah.
They're it's once you get to that, that part of it is, it's so much reward behind it, because the effort to kick off that process and keep it up, it's not just a daily special. It takes a lot of commitment, and so we would fry off these beef tendon chips, which are really actually light and airy and crunchy, just very subtle flavor of beef, and then we would put the beef tartare mixed with the michelada spice. There was cilantro aioli and pickled onions, I think it was pickled shallots on there, some fresh cilantro, and then there's the Budweiser with the lime, and you take the bite and slam the beer. We were sending out these little, I think like little 6-ounce. They call them porch pounders, if you've heard that term, which is funny.
Cute too.
Yeah, totally cute. And so that was a cool dish that did take, I think, a riff off of Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
So no queso and chips yet, but guaranteed we've had it for staff meal a lot. So
you mentioned when we talked yesterday staff meal, and I asked you. I had heard a rumor that there was something like Doritos, and you said, "What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah.
So did you figure out what that was?
I got introduced to this ingredient in San Francisco called citric acid, and it more or less is a powder form that's super sour and super tangy and super tart.
It's a powder.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's it's more like granules, like sugar, less like a powder. And I remember our pastry chef at RN74 was using it to make these sort of like gummies, if you will. And I remember he played a joke on somebody, and instead of just rolling it in a little citric acid and sugar, he just rolled it in citric acid, and he would like play tricks on me. Hey, do you want to try this? I made, like passion fruit, whatever, and it would just like freak out people because it would just like
palate cleanser to the max.
Their face, you know what I mean? And so I ended up like enjoying it. Like I would enjoy it straight, and I was like, I wonder what you can do with this. Like, how do you elaborate on this? And then I started just reading what were the ingredients, and a lot of like snack foods, and citric acid is in almost every single one.
It really is.
And I was like, oh, it gives it that bite. And so we use it sometimes in the kitchen for, again for staff meal. If we're doing, we'll use the queso and chips, for example. We can buy chili powder or make chili powder, and when the chips come out of the fryer, it's citric acid, chili powder, maybe it's cumin, maybe it's chili flake, maybe it's coriander that's ground, and all of a sudden you've developed something that's like just as good as Doritos ever were, if not better, because you have it in front of you. And so it's kind of a wild thing to experience when you go, oh, that's what they were using the whole time. It's just citric acid. It just makes it like kind of addicting and mouth-watering.
Yeah.
So
I need to be convinced that they're better than Doritos.
Oh,
I need you to convince me.
I think that they might be a little better. I don't know. But it's nice because you don't have to. I mean, if you were to just squeeze lime or lemon over your chips, they all of a sudden they're soggy, and this obviously makes sense.
Right.
So
okay. I have one last question for you, which is Santa Maria style barbecue or Texas barbecue?
I have to wholeheartedly part with Texas barbecue. I didn't grow up like this like barbecue kid. There's no part of me like I grew up in barbecue smoke, but we always had a barbecue pit in our backyard, and it wasn't like, hey, look how Texan we are, we have a barbecue pit. It was just kind of how we cooked. And when I say we, I mean my dad just would always have pork chops or steaks or whatever, but it was never like, hey, we're doing Texas style brisket, we're not doing Texas style ribs. Everything went on the pit and got smoked that way, just an option as to how to cook. I was in Houston visiting my family 3 years ago, and my brother said, you got to check out this place, Killen's Barbecue in Pearland, Texas. And I was like, what's it all about? He's like, it's nuts. You won't even believe how good it is. And so we went, and I remember having this like religious experience where I like stopped, opened my eyes, and just sort of went, I didn't know it could get this good. I didn't know that.
Why? What did they do?
Well, I've been sort of addicted to what it's sort of become as far in the world of barbecue. It's really taken, like craft barbecue's really taken off, and it makes sense because if you do it so well, so right, and in Texas it's a very low and slow and tedious and detail-oriented process. The end result is something that is just, it's like mind-altering. You're biting it going, oh my God, food is not supposed to taste this good. And it's generally just just based on the person behind it just caring a lot about making it as perfect as they can, and it's, again, barbecue is just meant to be kind of like this everyday kind of low-key thing, and there's so much attention on it right now, especially in Texas. But I've had good tri-tip, but I've had brisket in Texas that's probably better than most things that I've ever had in any cuisine, no matter what. So that's just me being true.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for joining me for the 805 Living Magazine podcast. To get recipes for Chef Jason Paluska's pimento cheese sliders, off-the-wall popcorns, and other happy hour snacks from restaurants in the 805, see the June issue of 805 Living Magazine or head to 805living.com. Until next time, I'm Jaime Lewis.